Hello, everyone. This is a big topic, and it's kind of overwhelming for me as well. Spent a lot of time writing it, so hopefully we can tie it all together, and it'll give you some understanding. It's quite unique the way I approach this, and somewhat innovative, I feel. So, what is alpha and beta? What is the alpha male and beta male? A viewer of my channel made this comment. Alpha and beta are constructs taken from the animal kingdom. And the way scientists describe the hierarchy of male animals in the wild. The MGTOW, men going their own way community, only use this terminology as a way to describe women's choices in men, implying that women overwhelmingly and instinctually and predominantly will choose the alpha male. That is their preference, the alpha male. He goes on to say, this viewer, that alpha or beta really depends on the individual's point of view, meaning that what you are, alpha and beta, is determined by you, by your point of view, meaning that you can alter or modify your point of view. This is what is promulgated by the MGTOW, men going their own way communities. I will analyze the fallacy in these statements. This sets up this whole topic for me to talk to you about. What is alpha and beta? My reply to that is that male behavior is always parallel to the animals in the wild, except for when it's suppressed. Male behavior, that is. The inaccuracy with your assertion involves one main factor. Alpha and beta are not individual points of view. It's a very, very big mistake. One cannot have the point of view of either alpha or beta because they are not points of view. You are not going to decide what you are. I will explain to you in this video why. Because in this video I'm going to tell you what differentiates alpha from beta and what is alpha and beta. Thus, one cannot transform from one to the other, as it was stated in my previous video, part 1. This is part 2. It is impossible to transform from one to the other. This is what men going their own way and the pickup artist community must totally give up on. They're spreading false information, either by ignorance or due to running a scam and deception on unsuspecting males. So I'm going to attempt to explain to you why. In psychology, they call alpha and beta type A and type B personality types. So what is alpha and beta? Let's start there. It is nothing more than personality types. Not the type of relationship you're in, or even if you're in or you're not in a relationship, not what you look like, if you're tall or short or fat or skinny or ugly or good looking, and not how you treat women and how aloof you are with women, or how much you concede to women, how much of a pussy beggar you are. No, those are not descriptions or indicators of alpha or beta males. Alpha and beta is only determined by your personality. And as we know, personality is immutable, cannot be taught, cannot be learned, cannot be acquired, and it is definitely not an individual's point of view. You cannot transform yourself from a beta to an alpha or an alpha to a beta. You can make a feeble attempt at pretense, but it will not be comfortable to you and it will not be natural to you to do so. Exactly as it is in the animal kingdom. So in psychology, we use alpha and beta interchangeably with type A and type B personality types. In fact, we don't use alpha and beta, we use type A and type B personality types. As we shall see, the type B male's delusions in a straw man of the alpha male, or what he commonly calls something that's synonymous with the alpha male, is the bad boy, is pure reassurance, justification, self-preservation, posturing, and assuagement. In claiming a justifiable cause or excuse for type B personality incompetence. In his lack of success in gaining female attention, and hence female validation. So it is an incapacity on the part of the type B male to construct a straw man for reasons of reassurance, justification, self-preservation, posturing, and assuagement. Again, type A and type B are personality types. You're either one or the other, and you know what you are. However, contrary to this fabrication of the advantages that the type A or alpha male has, it is a fabrication. In the end, it is actually a positive outcome for the beta or type B male, as you will see. Now, this type of defeatism is only typical of the type B male. In order to construct the fallacy of the alpha male, never would a type A male ever surrender to his diminishment of his self-worth. Not even a type A of below average looks below average personality and below average intelligence would ever resort in this type of defeatist mentality. This is typical of the type B, the beta male. Only the type B male would ever succumb to the notion that there is a super male, a straw man, who, in the opinion of the type B, is selected by all females and is intrinsically the victor in procreation. Let's finally analyze what constitutes the type A and type B male personality. First, let's just go back and review what the type A and what the type B are not. What type A and type B are personality types, and personality is defined and revolves around motivation. More specifically, motivation strategy. And motivation strategy it's very different in the type A and the type B. So depending on what you are, your motivation strategy is going to be very different. What is motivation? Motivation is the reason one has for acting or behaving in a particular manner. The desire or willingness for you to do something. What gives you that desire? What gives you that willingness? What gives you the magnitude of the desire and the willingness? Magnitude also comes into play. The impetus, which is the force that makes something happen. What is the impetus? And how sensitive you are to that impetus. How important it is for you to mobilize yourself into action. This differs greatly between the type A and the type B personality. What motivates the type A and the type B, as I said it, is totally different. The reason behind the errors in female selection is there is the woman's failure to evaluate the male based on personality types. What the female does is select a male based on utility, procurement. Now, as I explained before, it is not only based on utility. It is based, be it emotional or utilitarian. Either one of the two or both. The female blunder is to prioritize immediate and instant emotional distress, alleviation. Again, the female blunder is to prioritize immediate and instant emotional distress alleviation. Her low self-esteem issues, which females are very prone to and have a very hard time tolerating and dealing with. When a female loses her self-esteem, she does things that she will regret later, and things that will affect her relationships, her consequent relationships with no way to erase or wipe out the situations that occur. Any male capable of medicating her emotional inadequacy gets access, receives access, receives a permit to the female. Any male capable of medicating her emotional inadequacy. This male must never be in conflict with the female by demanding expectations of her. He must be subservient to her at all times, making his central role medicative for her comfort and self-esteem until she no longer has any purpose for him or finds a superior subordinate. That is the mechanism of the female behavior in any relationship. Again, he must be subservient to her at all times, making his central role medicative for her comfort and self-esteem until she no longer has any purpose for him or finds a superior subordinate. As you can see, type A does not fit this purpose and in effect will challenge the female in dominance. The type A personality, in spite of how romantic, emotionally dependent he is on the female, is never subordinate to the female in terms of the power of his will. Her volition and determination will never supersede his own. So the type A personality, the alpha male, will not let her volition or determination to ever supersede his own. This is regardless of how much he concedes to her. Because as you will see, conceding to a female has a much deeper purpose than what superficially one may understand. And as I explained before, there is no choice but to concede to women. You have no choice. You either concede or you have no relationship. Or at least it will be impossible to sustain a relationship. You can deny it or you can ignore it. But there's no way around it. Another one of my videos. You have no choice. Get that in your head before you get into any relationship. And quit lying about it. You're only lying to yourself. The type A alpha male will concede to the female, but for an entirely different reason than the beta male, the type B. The type A will need to dominate the female, while the type B will expect to be dominated. A very big difference. So again, the type A will concede to the female, but for an entirely different reason than the type B. The type A will need to dominate the female, while the type B will tolerate being dominated. The type A will not tolerate being dominated by the female. Right away, the alpha male is in conflict with the female. The male nature of the alpha male is in conflict with the female nature. and will become threatening and in a way unattractive in terms of personality to any female. This is while it is facile to react in an impetuous manner to the notion of conceding to a woman. Don't jump to conclusions. Don't have a knee-jerk reaction to conceding to a woman, because there's different reasons to concede to a woman. There's no alternative to conceding to a woman, but the type A and the type B achieve very different ends. By the concessions. The type A will proceed perniciously to destroy the female or to dominate the female, while the type B will be perniciously destroyed by the female. It's the other way around. Curiously, both types of males, type A or type B, will face the same theoretical conclusion of being discarded by the female. It doesn't matter what your personality type is, you end up in the same place. That's why alpha males, both alpha males and beta males, are betrayed equally. I would say equally, believe it or not, by women. Because a woman is nothing more than a solipsistic creature, primarily. She doesn't know any other way. A woman does not love a man. The woman only loves how a man makes her feel. Because a woman cannot love a man. She can only love how a man makes her feel. So, curiously, both types of males, type A and type B, will face the same theoretical conclusion of being discarded by the female. The only exception to the ubiquitous failed relationship, the only exception to the ubiquitous failed relationship is proportionality by both genders in the awareness of their mutual lack of options, leading to a strained situation comprised of personality, attenuation, and tolerance. Whoa! I think I overwrote that one. Let me read it again. The only exception to the ubiquitous failed relationship is proportionality by both genders in the awareness of their mutual lack of options. So, in order to circumvent the natural outcome of the failed relationship, both genders in the relationship must realize their lack of options or the inferiority of their options, of their other options. So this leads to a strained situation, often, but one which is comprised of personality attenuation and tolerance. So they tone down their natural inclinations of domination, either the domination of the female of the type B or the domination of the type A male of the female. They tone that down, attenuate their proclivities in order to maintain the relationship, simply because they realize that they will lose each other. And frankly, they realize that they have no better options. And that we view and we observe as being a sustained relationship. So your motivational structure determines your personality, or your personality determines your motivational structure. The two are intertwined, or one in the same. Personality and motivation. Personality types are, in essence, motivational types. So type A and type B are motivational types. Again, not relationship status, not physical attributes, and not concessions towards females. Those are not indicators of the alpha or the beta male. Both the type A and the type B can be in long-term committed relationships. Both type A and type B can be attractive or unattractive, and both type A and type B can be equally conceding to women. If one uses deduction in coming to a conclusion as to what type of male will have the most instantaneous and the most numerous successes in acquiring females, it is not the alpha type A male. Contrary to those tough and smart MGTOW and PUA warriors, contrary to what they believe. There's no super male here in the alpha male. Female will determine the type A as threatening, unmalleable personality. In fact, the unattractive alpha male is the quintessential douchebag by common female perception. Quite the turnoff according to female valuation. So contrary to the false popular narrative, to be an alpha male, one is not required to be full of self-confidence, as many type Bs believe that a type A must have. He often doesn't have self-confidence. The alpha is not required to be physically attractive to be an alpha, and often he's not. And the alpha is not aloof conceding to women. The type A or alpha male is not defined by being indifferent to women in his refusal to concede to women. That is a big, big, big fallacy. Simply, if you don't concede to women, you get no women unless you pay for it up front, as in prostitution. But we've dealt with that before. If you're going to do that and pay for it up front in prostitution, you will get no nutrition. You will get no female validation. And everything is about female validation. It is not about sex. Listen to me, girls. Listen to me, guys. It is not about sex. Sex alone is empty. Everything is about female validation. The type A, or alpha male, is not defined by being indifferent to women in his refusal to concede to women. Not conceding to women is a certainty to instantly lose female interest, unless the female has a very strong physical attraction to the male, a sustained physical attraction. A sober female having physical attraction, not a drunk female. Doesn't count. Again, that's rape. These days, that's rape. Unless the female has a very strong physical attraction to the male and is already convinced of her selection. She's already made that decision as to selecting the male, based largely on fantasy or material opportunism. So, if you're going to be aloof to females, you better fucking be good looking. And I mean super good looking. Otherwise, aloof ain't working. There's a little PUA reality for you. There's PUA and there's PUA reality. And the two never meet in the real world. Thus, the type A is always portrayed by PUA or MGTOW, pickup artists or men going their own way communities, in a falsely inspirational and aspirational narrative. The type A, the alpha male, as someone who is unrecognizable in the real world, the way it's portrayed in those communities. Where the type A differs in the way in which he sees himself is what he aspires to be. The type A differs in the way he sees himself and what he aspires to be, because the type A is driven. The type A is actually not self-confident. The type A is driven. Don't confuse the two. It's not one and the same. The type A is in fact insecure, to the point where he is very competitive and maybe more aggressive in his aspirations and wants. He's a fighter. Now, we talked about motivation. Now, what is the Where does the motivation come from for being a fighter? It can only come from one place. It's not a pretty place. And it's not a glamorous place. And it is very different from the alpha male that they talk about. The very cool, the very confident, self-assured, content alpha male. Motivation comes from one place, which is insecurity. It's ugly. It's ugly. Insecurity. But it sure fucking motivates. Nothing motivates more than insecurity. Contentment does not motivate. Impossible for contentment to motivate. When you're content, you're not going to move your ass. You're not going to do anything. You're good enough. You're complacent when you're content. When you're self-confident, you're complacent. The type A alpha male does not know the meaning of contentment. He is never content. Insecurity is where his motivation comes from. And insecurity is what his motivation is driven by. The motivational structure of the type A, the alpha male, is entirely different from that of the type B, the beta male. This is where the difference lies in their motivational structure. Not in their looks, not in how much they concede to women, and not if they're MGTOW or not MGTOW. You're MGTOW doesn't mean that you're an alpha male. There's very few alpha males. Most men are type B, beta males. I'm talking the vast majority of males. The type A is a discontent individual by nature, rooted in his DNA. Because remember, you have to be born one or the other. You're either an alpha or you're a beta. You're either a type A or a type B. We cannot take a P-way class and transform ourselves from one to the other. That's laughable. That's not how human nature functions. Your programming is set at birth. All you can do is acquire awareness and shed your ignorance, but you cannot change your personality. Rooted in genetics, the type A is driven to achieve by an entirely different method than the type B. So when we talk about validation, we must understand why to be validated is so important. It's because we don't live in a vacuum. Self-perception can only be validated from external sources. At least that is the natural inclination of the human organism, human psyche. So, how to spot an alpha male or type A personality? Amazingly, it is the all important construct of validation, contrary to the false narrative in from the delusional male. The alpha male is actually preoccupied with validation. It's what drives him. It's what drives him to be number one, to be the leader. It's a constant need for validation. Just think about what a powerful motivator the acquisition of validation is. Perpetual acquisition. As secure and self-confident as the alpha male may seem to the outside view, he is filled with insecurities. He is absorbed with who he wants to be and how he wants to be seen. This is not a simple image consciousness of someone who is superficial and posturing. It's a type B who is absolutely congruent with posturing as a proclivity because of his lower need, actually his lower need for validation. Hence, lower price, lower drive to attain it. The type A needs to produce, to achieve, and he is his own worst critic. The type A must always live up to his own high standards. Social status is important to him, but not in terms of pretense, but in terms of true substance. Not in terms of superficialities as in money for its own sake, but in terms of something more profound, as in money being a measure of accomplishment. The end result must also always be accomplishment for the alpha male. The alpha needs to be externally validated, while the beta is content with internal validation, or even an absence of validation, if he has no source for it. The alpha simply cannot survive without validation. It drives him to have a conspicuous image or a conspicuous affirmation of female validation. meaning that it also has to be witnessed by the environment around the alpha male. It cannot be private. Female validation, or validation from any other source actually, will complete the alpha male in engendering his own self-validation. He can only self-validate if he's first and primarily externally validated. Either in terms of status from the public persona, or from individual females. Impressive females. The more impressive, the better. For the type A, social status, accomplishment in life, and self-esteem are actually an assuagement, yes, for feeling insecure. The beta is a much more secure yet far less courageous individual. The beta is a much more secure, actually, but less courageous individual. The beta will take a lot less risks. So what you're getting here is you're getting a unique definition of the type A and the type B personality types, the alpha and the betas. It's an innovative look at these two personality types. So the beta is much more secure. This mitigates the drive of the beta and influences his whole temperament and comport. Consistent with this personality type, the alpha male, the type A, is domineering, impatient, quick-tempered, which are all derivatives of a driven individual who knows what he aspires to be. He has to lead. He has to lead to be self-gratified. These are highly intensive people, always curious, have diverse interests, are good at multitasking, and usually need to perform beyond par. They need to perform beyond par to actually feel worthwhile. Now, what does this all add up to? Intense motivation. That's what it adds up to. And it also adds up to personality. So getting back to that proverbial bad boy. What exactly is a bad boy? Bad boy is a type A personality, and by definition, it's an individual who generates a lot of personality, who has personality. And if the individual has personality, the individual is able to stimulate the female. Despite more often than not, by definition, being in conflict with female nature. Nonetheless, the type A holds personality, gives off personality, projects personality, therefore projects stimulation for both males and females. Consistent with their motivational structure, the alpha male is consistently in a race to achieve higher goals and loftier aspirations. They cannot rest on their laurels. The type A, his identity and confidence level is only as high as the impact of his last achievement. He quickly falls back into his natural state of insecurity. It's not easy being a type A personality. Not easy. Again, it's a good sentence here. His self-identity and confidence level is only as high as the impact of his last achievement. He needs his new and consistent supply of validation. You often heard that these people always are looking for attention. They need attention because attention is validation. Even if they're hated. It's congruent to validation. Attention is attention, regardless of what type it is. The most coveted of all for him, for the type A, the alpha male, is female validation. And notice the antithesis between the description of the alpha male within MGTOW and PUA dogma and what is the actual reality of the alpha male in the real world. MGTOW uses their fabrications of the alpha as a justification of their deficiencies, while PUA invents a version of the alpha as an aspirational fantasy and the source of their efficacy. The problem is that while both PUA and MGTOW have invented the same alpha male, it is a false narrative, a non-existent fabrication to serve a specific purpose for both of these groups. So contrary to the popular but erroneous narrative, false narrative, the alpha male is not aloof or unresponsive to pleasing women. Quite the opposite. The alpha cannot be aloof about anything in life that he does. That would be contrary to how the alpha functions. Women, as with everything else, is an accomplishment for the alpha male. And if women are going to be an accomplishment, the alpha male is going to be much more motivated in attracting women than the type B, beta male will be. The seduction of women is a great source of validation for the alpha male. Contrary to pickup artists' PUA aims of repeated, emotionless sexual activity, the one-night stand basically is what they're after. or claim to be anyway. I think the success is actually extremely low, embarrassingly low for the PUA. The repeated emotionless sex, which engenders no female validation, that is the tragedy of the one night stand. That is the tragedy of prostitution, or going to prostitutes. The alpha cannot survive without female validation and must secure this validation. Not secure sex alone, but sex with validation. Sex only being a barometer for female validation. Smart women will be perceptive and will be cognizant that the one night stand offered by the most attractive and most deceiving PUA offers no validation for any woman either, while the alpha searches for the opportunity to fulfill women in exchange for validation. Does that make sense? Let me say that again. Smart women will be perceptive and cognizant that the one night stand offered by the most attractive and the most deceiving pickup artist offers no validation for any woman, while the alpha searches for the opportunity to fulfill women in exchange for their validation. So it's a win-win situation from the alpha man. Smart women will select the alpha for one reason alone, which is to reap the rewards of his passion and his need to impress. This translates into personality. The alpha will bring her both unequaled rewards as well as unequal challenges. The alpha brings tension, stress, as well as excitement and spontaneity, because that is how the alpha male functions. He's a risk taker, he's a fighter, and he's full of motivation because he's always after something. In one word, the alpha brings personality, while the beta often has muted personality or lacks personality altogether. Therefore, the so-called bad boy can offer more to the female. The alpha male bad boy can offer a lot more to the female in terms of emotional, sexual stimulation than what the beta male will do. The beta male often and tragically is relegated to a simple utilitarian purpose until the day that he's no longer useful to her. The type A alpha male finds it difficult to accept failure, since failure results in the antithesis effect of validation. Failure is the absence of validation, as simple as that. So he cannot fail. Must win, 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 constantly win, win, win. And if he won yesterday, he's got to win again. There's no being content. The type B, beta male, is content. He doesn't have to win. He's not there to win. He's there to enjoy the game. Since the alpha is a validation junkie, failure is no option. The type A is in constant competition and his main opponent is himself. He is in competition with his own fallibility or incapacity. Another opponent they have is time restrictions. They're always in a hurry. Always got to be done quickly or instantaneously. Tension is ever present in everything they do. This constant fight with themselves and others gives them the passion to work to exhaustion. They seem to have high energy because they're driven, they're motivated. Relaxation is quite difficult for them and useless. They need to compete if there is no obvious competition, they create it. They will create competitors and situations of competition. The key point here to make is that they are driven by the self and not simply by posturing. It has to be solid and real achievement, or otherwise they are not validated. The type B is more of a posturer and thus a less courageous or individualistic personality type. Something that may pass as achievement is good enough for the type A beta male, where only solid and real and impressive achievement can only suffice for the alpha male. The type B personality type is someone who is much more relaxed and much more accepting of his imperfections and incapabilities. The key here is that he is accepting of himself and does not necessarily need the validation for self affirmation. He does not need external validation in order to self validate. And work steadily for their goals. There's no pressing tension that they must achieve. There's much less stress level within them. They enjoy their achievements as opposed to having to prove something through achievement. They are not too stressed to excel. They can be disappointed when they fall short of their goals, but unlike the alpha male, they are not devastated. They're just simply not as motivated as the alpha male. So therefore, failure is not devastating to the type B beta male. The beta male, they are more accepting of failures. They enjoy games and competitions, not for the sole objective of winning, but for the love of the game. The type B beta male, they are reflective, but not overly innovative. Their achievements do not have to be monumental, where for the alpha male it must be monumental. That's why the alpha male must be the leader, and he must be the center of attention within the group. The type B beta male allow themselves to explore and fail if necessary. There is no room for failure for the alpha male. Sometimes type B beta males are too relaxed and laid back, and they lack the drive to reach the uppermost of their careers. And frankly, it's not a problem for them. They are followers. They are not leaders. And it is not imperative for them to be leaders. The type B beta male is quite even-tempered. Even-tempered. And therefore they live much less stressful lives. So we have talked about two concepts here, which is indicative of the difference between the type A alpha male and the type B beta male. One is motivation and derivative of motivation, and in terms of the end result of motivation, the achievement of motivation is validation. So motivation and validation. Now, what is the comprehensive, encapsulating construct in which motivation and validation resides in? And that is the ego. The alpha male and the beta male have very different manifestations of ego. And this is how they are defined. They're basically defined by ego. And the ego defines and controls and directs their motivation and their need for validation. Now we're getting into the meat of this whole thing and kind of bringing it all together. So when we speak about ego, let's keep away from the Freudian definition of what ego is. I personally don't believe in any of that. Freudian psychology was never open to refutation. Psychoanalysis never operated that way. It is more like a religion than, or a political view, and is not a science. Although it was heavily promoted, so that is not how we were going to understand ego in what I'm presenting here. Ego simply means a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance. And the alpha and beta's sense of self-esteem and self-importance is very different. That's what determines who they are individually, and they're very different from each other. Their need of self-importance and self-esteem is very different. The alpha has a very strong need for self-importance. Ego is the sense of self, And the alpha and the beta approach ego very differently, and it holds a very different level of importance for each of the personality types. And they're very different from each other. Your ego is your conscious mind, the part of your identity that you consider yourself. Okay, that's your ego, your sense of self. The sense of self of the alpha male is very different from the sense of self of the beta male, the type B personality. If you say someone has a big ego, then you are saying that he is too full of himself. And that's because he puts so much importance on his sense of self. His self-esteem is based on his sense of self. Ego can also be defined as I, or as in you, what you understand as I. Yourself, the self of any person. A person as thinking, feeling, and willing. Your need and your capacity for distinguishing yourself from any other self. Your self-identity is your ego. The ego is the opinion also that you have about yourself, how you view yourself, how you describe yourself. The self, especially as contrasted, differentiated, distinguished, and separated from anyone else's self or the whole world around you. It's your uniqueness and how unique you want to be or aspire to be. The alpha male has a real strong need for ego differentiation, and that's what describes the alpha male. Not that he opens the door for his woman. Not that he brings the woman flowers. Not that he's aloof and pretends that he doesn't care for female validation. That does not differentiate the alpha male. What differentiates the alpha male is how he contrasts, how his need to contrast, differentiate, distinguish, and separate himself from anyone else. And everything he does is to work towards those goals. The part of you, the ego is the part of you that defines itself as your personality. It's what separates you from the outside world. Ego is a very important also and responsible for derivative emotional responses such as hate, fear, jealousy, domination, and sometimes resulting in delusion if it gets out of hand. It can be dangerous if delusion enters the picture. But in the quest of elevating your ego into making your presence known, if you're an alpha male, you experience emotions, strong emotions, often of possible hatred, fear, jealousy, domination, and need for domination, competitiveness, to maintain your ego. Ego defines the perceived reason why one person is better than another. The alpha male must be better than others. He has a strong motivation to be better than others. Again, nothing to do with how he looks. Nothing to do with him being in a committed long-term relationship. Nothing to do with the extent to which he concedes to women. The alpha male may superficially seem that he's begging for pussy, but he's not. Conceding to women is not necessarily begging for pussy. It could be the absolute opposite. The alpha male needs supply. The end result is validation. Ego compels and mobilizes the alpha male to be or to have the vision of being better than the other guy. It's a must. That's why alpha males must be leaders, and they're always fighting. They fight to make their presence known, to fortify their presence. The possession of ego will drive you to fight and conquer in order to make your presence known unmistakably, explicitly, and blatantly if you're an alpha male. So ego is the conscious mind, or the consciousness of your own identity to yourself and the way you want to project yourself to others, and the need to project yourself to others. The current cultural forces often force one, especially the alpha male, to disguise his ego to be consistent with social graces of liberal society. Ego is something that people too often mistake as a bad thing. If what the majority say is true, then I guess you can say that your conscious mind or the consciousness of your own identity is considered a terrible thing to have, which would be ridiculous. The alpha male often has a hard time in today's liberal society. Ego is your own definition of your own self-worth, your self-value, your capability, and your individuality in relation to the external world. Ego is your measure of your own self-concept. The alpha male is someone for which ego is very important. And that's how everything has to do with ego. And that's how you distinguish the alpha male from the beta male, the type A personality from the type B personality. The alpha male is driven by his ego. and his self-perception is motivated and highly influenced by and predicated upon validation. In terms of female and male relationships, the ego's supply is female validation. Even though the alpha male type A personality, bad boy, is actually in conflict with female nature. It is not conducive to what female nature needs or demands or is in search of for security and for her need of domination and control. There's a conflict because the alpha male wants the same thing as the female does. So in reality, the attractive beta male type B personality is the type of male which is the most attractive to the female, at least in terms of immediate response. The attractive beta male is unmatched in having success acquiring female attraction. Until the later date when the beta male is found to be lacking personality, lacking ambition, lacking drive, lacking sincerity even, lacking stimulation, lacking sexual response, lacking spontaneity, is when the female resorts to using him purely for material utility, not even emotional utility, but material utility. Often the female will tire of the beta male and be very attracted to the alpha male, specifically for the reason of his ego representation. The fact that he pleases the female in order to receive female validation. His very need of female validation will ensure the female that she receives her supply of male validation. She receives her attention. She receives her male validation. Importance to the alpha male. Often the female will receive constant stimulation on every level from the alpha male. Very different from the aloof, disassociated, disconnected, emotionless alpha male promulgated by MGTOW and PUA. Therefore, the alpha male will provide emotional utility and possibly also material utility to the female. Even though at the very start, at the commencement of any relationship, the alpha male will not be the more desirable of the two. the beta male will be. Specifically, the attractive beta male will always win out initially, short term, and on a temporary basis. Just want to mention something to you guys. I've been doing, since I announced that I'm going to be offering the service of the counseling, consulting, coaching, therapy sessions. I've been doing quite a few, and they've been going very well, and I get a lot of satisfaction in helping you guys, and I think that uh, the viewers that I've been counseling also came away with something substantial from these sessions. And I would like to work with a lot more of you. I can do that pretty well at your convenience. All you have to do is send me an email with your written story, your account of your past, of your troubles, and your goals, where you want to, what you want to reach, and I will review this and get back to you, and we can set up a time. I would very much like to work with women as well. I think I can offer women a lot in terms of knowledge about male nature, and greatly increase their chances of starting and maintaining a long-term relationship. The problems involved, which put up blocks and hinder relationships which are very difficult to achieve these days, as we all know. The biggest reason for that is just the ignorance, the lack of knowledge, and maybe even the lack of interest in the nature of your partner, of the nature of the other gender. Simply just knowing how the other functions. Males don't know enough about female nature, and females certainly don't know enough about male nature. And sometimes, actually, another big problem is that men don't know about their own nature, and women don't know about female nature. And these are all things that I can help with, and bring you an understanding and sometimes a revelation into your own background and life as to how to approach yourself and the opposite gender, how to bring closure to any trauma you may have experienced, explain to you why and how your relationship went bad, and I will even tell you exactly what you did wrong. I will make you accountable if it's warranted, because I will simply not leave you with questions. I will give you solid, tangible answers. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.